I fucking
So,
knew it.
well, you knew it. You take it away then, Tom. What's happened?
Wow.
What's gone
Just
on?
first of all, culture, I think, owes me an apology or two. No, I'm just kidding. This is something that I was starting to hear about this last week. I was hearing about it more from the CBS side of things, but basically I'd been hearing that Warner Brothers was hovering around, very interested in the sports.
Mm,
And I said this deal would make a lot of sense.
mm.
For a lot of reasons. And it's one of the few that might actually squeak by. We'll have to see, but I'm really curious what
So, so,
everybody
so,
else thinks.
so what
It
it
was
is
kind of
basically, Warner
rumors
Brothers.
swirling, and then Zaslav basically kind of confirmed it.
Well, let's just clarify for anyone who's just walking in this and they don't know anything. Warner Brothers and Paramount might be merging. Both companies are in pretty serious debt. Warner Brothers Discovery, because I have no idea why, multiple bombs perhaps, and issues. Paramount, lots and lots of black hole cash going into their streaming service, as well as their primary controlling shareholder looking to sell up. Essentially,
And I
that's kind
actually
of
was told that they're
a
not in as bad
scenario,
a
isn't
financial shape as all these analysts and stuff are trying to present them as. See, that's what I was told.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Paramount or Warner Brothers?
Warner. Paramount, on the other hand, is a different discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think the reason why Paramount is looking to sell up or even remotely interested in this is because of that primary controlling shareholder looking to sell up, essentially, isn't it? I do think Warner Brothers is kind of, I don't necessarily think they're as bad off as what loads of people are making out, but then they're certainly not massively well off. They've done really well on trying to generate some free cash flow. But they're still in, a substantial amount of debt, aren't they? That was pretty much clarified previously. So, what's happened now? The Deadline article here is saying, look, it's preliminary, right? David Zaslav, obviously CEO, boss of Warner Brothers Discovery, and Paramount Global CEO Bob Bakish sat down for a meeting. It was all rather preliminary, the sources said. If it's coming to the media, it's not preliminary. That's past preliminary at that point. And I would argue, and I'm sure you guys, well, I want you to chime in, so please do in a minute. But I would argue that this has been put to the media to see actually what the stocks do, how they respond to this notion, right? Of whether this merger going ahead helps boost their share prices. That's what I would argue. I don't know what you guys think about that. I mean, it's certainly not preliminary if it's put to the media. Andre?
I agree 100% with that assessment. This is not a leak. This is being released. These are not rumors. These are talks. There's an intention here. Now, of course, when there's talks, that means it can still go either direction. It means that it still has to go through a bunch of approvals before this thing can actually happen. But what I think is going on here, as Tom said, Warner really isn't in that bad a shape. Paramount, that's a different story. Remember with Paramount, just a couple of years ago, Paramount was two corporations. It was Paramount under the old Viacom, and it was CBS, which both of them have now been merged together into Paramount. That was a remerger that looked good for a while there, but it has failed. We can say this now because this new merged corporation, consisting of the old Paramount, or rather the previous Paramount and the previous CBS, right now is worth about the same as one of them before. So that's basically half the value has been wiped out since the merger happened. This is why they are in such deep trouble, or part of the reason. The reason that the value has gone down is basically everything has gone to hell because they have a big management problem. And I think, this is just me speculating, I think that Paramount, they need someone to come and buy them. Warner doesn't need anyone to buy them. But David Zaslav, he's known for picking up underperforming companies, fixing them, and flipping them. That is what he is in the process of doing with Warner right now. I think that what he sees is that, you know what? While I'm still working with Warner, this Paramount here, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I'm going to try to seize it and fix them too. This isn't so much a merger, or this is a merger in the same way that Warner and Discovery was a merger, which really was Discovery taking over Warner. That's the kind of merger that was. And I think that's the exact thing going on here, that this is a case of now Zaslav, he has another company in his targets. We're going to call it a merger, but in reality, it's a takeover. This is Zaslav taking over Paramount as well, fighting everyone, fixing it, and then a few years down the line, flipping it. Then he'll have two companies to flip, Warner and Paramount. Now, of course, he still has to fix Warner. He hasn't done that yet. I mean, he has done much, but like, for instance, his big problem right now is the DC universe. That was supposed to be their big cash cow, but right now it is the biggest anchor on the corporation there is. So very much is going to depend on if James Gunn is able to turn this around. If he can do that, then you can consider Warner saved.
Well, I want
and same thing with Paramount, but I think that's what's going on here.
Yeah. Well, I want to get your take next, Chris, because of course we've got to let you live for a relatively limited time. I think what's your thoughts?
You and Tom and Andre are on point. I think Warner is also bracing for their final, what they hope will be one of their final flop busters coming out this weekend with Aquaman 2. There's no telling how much money they sank into it. And I know that the embargo on reviews isn't until the movie releases. So that tells me that they kept Amber Heard fully up front in the movie.
Let embargo lifts right about now, I think.
That's what I'm thinking too. Yeah. So we should know. But I think this has all been factored in. I think, with the bold decision to shelve Batgirl earlier this year, and the way that they've kept DC Comics sort of at bay, and they've tried a lot of things. I don't think they were expecting Black Adam to do as poorly as it did, but it feels like they've sort of
Black Adam's earned the most this year.
That's the only one they've had that's been semi a hit. Yeah, and I would
actually earned the most. It earned the most this year.
The Flash, I would argue, is even the bigger flop. You got Michael Keaton coming back as Batman. And it does nothing.
I'm not sure what they were thinking there, though, because to me that would have been the movie to also shelve. So they've got to get the albatross or the millstone that is the DCEU off the board, put it in the rearview mirror. They'll do that with Aquaman. They're sort of set. It's sort of on them next year. I think the big problem for the movie industry going forward is they're already predicting it to be under $8 billion next year, which would, and they're blaming it still. They keep on using post-pandemic and so on. But let's be honest, if Disney could still do billion-dollar movies, this wouldn't be an issue. But most of the suppression, I think, for the big blockbusters has been Disney, and Warner Brothers is, they're way behind Disney as far as those numbers. So I think that this is a good decision. Paramount probably needs it. I'm curious how tied to Disney Paramount still sort of is, because the release on Indiana Jones was always a little bit strange to me. I couldn't figure out why Disney and Marvel Comics didn't reprint their Indiana Jones comics. They didn't reprint an omnibus edition of the old John Byrne Indiana Jones comics. They didn't even announce it or even do a new comic. So I think with these deals, there's a lot of untangling that has to take place. But I think Andre is correct. These talks are ongoing. They're looking, just like you said, Nate, to see what the market does, to see sort of what the industry's response to this news is. And I think it'll be positive.
It actually dipped. So the
stocks dipped for Warner or Paramount?
Both. So the immediate reaction wasn't particularly great. Warner's stock slipped by 6%, and then Paramount slid by 2%. And then even further, I don't know what that's up, where it's
this
up.
This is what I alluded to. The problem here is that Zaslav hasn't fixed Warner yet.
Yeah,
Warner, while in not nearly a bad shape as Paramount, they are not in a good shape. And what Warner and what the market sees here, I think that they see here is Zaslav trying to bite over more than he can chew. If he had successfully flipped Warner already, if he had fixed the company, it would be a completely different matter. But is something going on with Warner right now? Do they have like a very big, expensive movie coming out this weekend that's going to flop tremendously? I mean, do we have a situation like that? Mayhaps this is like bad news for or bad timing for Warner. And I said that's exactly what I mean, right? The success right now, the way that Hollywood is structured, the success of Warner is the success of DC. The success of DC right now is a potential, but it is a potential that has not been realized. Before it can be realized, they have to get all of the past shit out of the way. And the last of that past shit is being released right now, this weekend. So this was not great timing to release these kind of news, because Warner are about to receive a black eye. So that's why the market is reacting the way that they do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to get your thoughts here, Nick. What do you think about this deal?
Well, we hit on this yesterday when it dropped, and one of the things I was curious about is something you mentioned was the stock. But as you mentioned, with this news dropping, Paramount stock is down a little over 3% today. Warner Brothers is down almost 3% today. Since this news dropped, so it's not really this news coming out hasn't helped their stock at all. And just like Andre was saying, Zaslav has not flipped Warner Brothers yet. DCEU is still in a sad state. That's got to be turned around and fixed. The whole company over at Warner Brothers has a lot of work to do to turn it around. And then, if they take on Paramount, you got Star Trek, which is in a terrible state. Hopefully that could get turned around.
That's a whole different set of things I've been hearing about, but go ahead. Sorry, Dan.
But yeah, I would love to see that get turned around. I would love to see him for this deal to actually happen. I think it's good for both companies. One question I had, when I saw this, and Tom or Andre, one of you other guys on the panel might have an answer for this, is who's going to be, if this merger happens, who's going to be over, everything? Is it
Zaslav?
Definitely Zaslav. Let's put it this way: the mismanaged company here is Paramount.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Paramount is one of the most No, it's not one of. It is the most mismanaged company in Hollywood right now, bar none.
So
that's where I wanted to.
So all the execs at Paramount will be
all of them
pretty much out of a job.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's this merger?
Okay.
Well, and that's the thing that bothers me is how people are like, look, I'm not saying David Zaslav's perfect.
No.
But motherfuckers have not let him have a chance to even do anything yet. As far as I know, Wonka is the first movie that's coming out that he had anything to do with. Like, you got to remember, in between him taking over, there's been, how many strikes and shit. Yeah. Like, we're just finally getting Aqua Turd out the door.
Yeah.
Wonka is
you are right.
Good movie.
You are right. Yeah.
So I mean, let's see what happens here with him. But yeah, you guys are right. Like Paramount, on the other hand, they couldn't get a hit if they tried outside of fucking Sonic lately. They were just lucky Top Gun 2 happened, or they'd probably be bankrupt by now.
Well, Top Gun,
Star Trek might get bought up by Kurtzman, or there's a whole convoluted thing going on there. Star Trek might not be part of the deal.
Well, Top Gun in part was by Skydance as well. So I mean, that's one of the reasons why.
And they are another player in this game too.
Yeah. Culture, let's get your thoughts, buddy.
Well, I think it's interesting. None of this can actually fall into place until about April 8th or 9th, when the final little bits left over from the Reverse Morris Trust thing with Warner Brothers actually happens. So when I look at how the playbook goes, this is 100% how I would do it. Is right before the holidays. We have a 4-month window to kind of build things out. Know what's going to go in place, have a good corporate plan to know what officers are going to stick around with the company. As you guys mentioned already, it's not a merger of equals. The more powerful companies, Warner Brothers, you have substantial opportunity here to blend these two studios together. It's not the first time that this has happened between two big studios and then they break apart. Probably the worst decision-making process was done by Sumner Redstone's daughter, Shari, from the very beginning to try to recombine Viacom and CBS back into its own, one entity. Had she never done that, she wouldn't be tasked with a whole lot of debt. And Paramount could have operated entirely separately in a way that they would have naturally led themselves into profitability. But it seems like anybody with the name of Bob is doing a very poor job running a studio right now, and somebody named David is going to be, I guess, Goliath in this case. There you are.
Bob Backus has done nothing but fuck Paramount for years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they made a massive mistake in trying to go into the streaming market when they literally have nothing as well.
No.
It's a fucking joke. Absolute joke. Well, there you have it, ladies and gents.